Hello everybody, my name is Midplier, and welcome back to Five Nights at Dungeons & Dragons. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I make Dungeons & Dragons videos, and most of them so far have been tip videos, but if you're more into the humor / ranty side of things, I have a video here which is all about the School of Enchantments and why I think it's particularly strange. But today's video is about 5 things you should avoid as a new Dungeon Master in Dungeons & Dragons. The reason I'm making this video is because I experienced a lot of very difficult challenges while going through my first ever campaign that I made a couple years ago, which is actually ending very soon. I made a lot of mistakes in my first ever campaign that is still going on, and going back on them now is a difficult challenge, so the best thing to do is to avoid them altogether. Inevitably, you will make some mistakes, but hopefully this video can help you avoid them for as long as possible. So let's get started with number 1. As a new Dungeon Master, it can be very tempting to have lots of NPCs in your campaign or one-shot that the players will interact with. Although the problem with having too many NPCs, especially too many in one room, is that not only is that a lot of work for you, it can be confusing for the players as well. And to kind of elaborate on that, the reason lots of NPCs in one room is difficult for you is not only do you have to gauge what they're thinking and reacting to inside that room and how they may interact with each other, you also have to account for what the players might do to them or say to them. Think of it like a computer running one process versus running 16 different processes. It makes it actively difficult for you to really give any one character or NPC their time to shine because you just have so much on your plate. And for players it's confusing because unless you're extraordinarily good with very distinct voices, it can get confusing on who is actually talking, and if an NPC is like, I am saying something very important, and if you get it confused with another NPC, it could have a wildly different meaning. You don't want to mistake the old Grand Wizard saying that the world is ending soon with the goblin in the corner saying the world is ending soon, because the players will trust the wizard, but if the goblin says it, they're going to ignore it, wake up the next morning, and then see the meteorite heading straight towards them and the major city. So keep it limited to maybe only 1 or 2 NPCs in a room at a time, and if you have an NPC joining the party for a short time, make sure it's for a short time and that you try to make it so that there isn't too many NPC with NPC interactions, because that can just be tough for a new Dungeon Master. Number 2. Most Dungeon Masters eventually develop a style, but many who start out, including me, feel like A, you don't have a style, or B, you're copying someone else that perhaps you look up to. With many things, such as like art, paintings, that kind of thing, starting out is rough. You might not feel like you have a style, or the one that you really like is, someone else's and you feel like you're copying it, and then, you don't feel too good about it. But don't worry, we all start off the same for the most part. We don't have too much of a sense of like what kind of style we like to go for. If we like the gritty, macho man, warrior stuff, or if we prefer the more lore-centric, whimsical, magical, ancient civilization, alien, UFO, Roswell sort of campaign. So when you start off, make sure you just start off basic and find what you like. Because inevitably, starting out, you will be scrambling for notes, trying to figure out what story beat goes where, what themes should go where, how much symbolism you should put into the villain, and give him a second Zuko redemption arc, because that's what people do these days for some reason. So just run your sessions, run your one-shots, however you like, and eventually you and your players will figure out what you do not like. And that will eventually develop into your style. It also doesn't hurt to just implement some things you look up to or are inspired by, such as movies, shows, and other works of fiction. Obviously, don't be too on the nose by adding a very large purple alien into your D&D campaign and making him the god of destruction. Number 3. Avoid working in absolutes. Working in absolutes as a new Dungeon Master is a great way to get yourself into a deep pit of despair that you are never ever going to get yourself out of. And what this means basically is if you're not too familiar with the rules or the themes or what story you want to tell, make sure you don't make anything super concrete at first. See where you want things to go just by like what feelings you're getting session by session, what feelings the players are getting, because perhaps the story you're crafting, you don't particularly like where it's going, or perhaps the players you're playing with aren't putting it in the direction you want. Or again, you're just not familiar with the rules that would really do the thing that you want to do. So I recommend for the first couple of sessions or so, while you're getting your bearings about you and you're learning the rules as you should, just take it easy. Don't make anything super concrete and super like, this is what's gonna happen, the god is coming back, he's coming, God of Destruction's coming, I'm gonna get you, it's coming, big giant meteor, because chances are, if you rush things and make things too concrete too quickly, you might miss out on the chance to implement new rules or mechanics or homebrews that would now feel like you're just kind of shoving them into a place where they don't belong. I also recommend, this is a quick tip, this isn't really a main one, I just kind of thought of this. If you're not too confident about, big campaign settings, try running the pre-made modules or just one-shots that you come up with yourself if you're more into the homebrew sort of play style. I personally started off with a campaign that I made myself from the ground up, but I could see where that would be a problem for a lot of people because it is a lot of work and I myself was actually kind of underprepared. The world was a little underbaked, took it out of the oven a little too quickly. So just try out a one-shot or pre-made module, get the feelings of the rules and what your players are like and what you're like, what your style is like. Number 4, and I'm sure you've heard this before, you've probably heard this with some other medium of like art or something, but inevitably you're going to make mistakes, and do not be afraid of that. Mistakes for a dungeon master are honestly one of the best ways to learn how to be a dungeon master. Learning what rules you messed up or what combat you didn't do particularly well not only helps you learn a sense of balance with combat, making sure the combats run fairly and smoothly, but it also familiarizes you with the rules far more quickly than just reading over the entire lengthy Dungeon Master's Guide. And also, to an extent, the player's handbook if you want to be more familiar with what your players are playing. It really all does also depend upon how you learn. Finding the best style of learning for you, all the rules and how things should generally go, just comes with time and experience. So don't be afraid to just try things out, even if you know it might not go particularly well, because you will learn something. It will teach you about how you like to play the game and the rules. Nothing teaches quicker than just throwing things at a wall and seeing what breaks the wall and seeing what bounces against the wall. And that leads me into my final point. Do not be afraid to experiment. Perhaps you want to try something new, such as a in-depth political system, where the elves on the left and the dwarves on the right are fighting each other, and your dwarf's name is Shmo Maiden, and he's the great dwarven president, and then the elf is the elf. Expanding your game with different rules, races, classes, subclasses, NPCs, themes, and so on and so forth is the quintessential way of basically filling out everything else I mentioned in this video. For example, figuring out where you should put NPCs, what kind of NPCs, and experimenting with how that flows, how that feels, is ultimately the way you're going to learn the game. It will teach you where you want to put things, how you want things to feel, what themes you're going for, and so on. And it's also just a lot of fun to experiment. It's something that will just teach you a lot, and chances are, as long as you're not adding in very strange things into your games, your players will probably enjoy it too. And when I say very strange things, I just mean avoid things where it's like, yes, every 5 real-life minutes you need to say, my character takes a swig of water, otherwise he dies of dehydration 5 minutes later. Unless, of course, your players are cool with that, in which case, you do you. I hope this video was helpful to you. I hope it was insightful. I will bid you adieu. Don't forget to like and subscribe, of course. And hit that bell too. I hope you have a good day. Adios.